Top 10 Strangest Extraterrestrial Encounters. There are 3 types of people in this planet. Some people conjure ghosts and go to great lengths to locate them. Some people believe what other people say. Then there are those who refuse to participate and end up starring in their own horror episode. Here are some of the strangest accounts about paranormal encounters. Number 10. Talking toys. A Furby was given as a gift to a little child, but he rapidly outgrew it, leaving it on a shelf in the basement closet to collect dust. The boy's older brother and a friend were hanging out later that evening and ended up sleeping in the same basement. A child's voice called out, "Come play with me," and shook them awake. He and his companion ignored it because they didn't notice anything unusual about the toy, unaware that it didn't speak English, and went back to sleep. The next morning, the lads found that Furbies only speak when they are moved and only communicate in nonsense. Furthermore, there were no batteries in the toy. Number 9. Energy transmission lines. When a paranormal investigator's father claimed that his childhood home was haunted by a spirit, he knew he had to look into it. He and a few friends described the spirit as a frightening witch who was draining their energies. He observed a ghost hovering behind his friend while capturing audio. They heard the spirit's voice once more when he told him this, and they caught a video of an orb departing the location at the same time. Meanwhile, their other friend, despite being well rested, slumped on the stairway completely fatigued. For a ghost to materialize on the opposite side of the barrier, it requires a lot. The bulk of paranormal investigation equipment is designed to survive spirit attacks and can even help with frequency filtering to boost the signal. Number 8. The Edinburgh Vaults. The Edinburgh Vaults are a set of vaults in the South Bridge that have been used as pubs, workshops, and storage rooms throughout the wet Scottish capital. With the passage of time, businesses departed and the homeless moved in, followed by illegal gambling dens and body disposal locations. The vaults were sealed for unexplained reasons in the 1800s, but they were rediscovered in the 1980s. Other witnesses have since claimed being attacked and scratched by a demonic apparition they believe to be Mr. Boots, the murderer of a young woman. When the vaults were opened, archaeologists discovered her remains in one of the chambers. The Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures crew was imprisoned in the vaults for the night and challenged the spirit by beaming headlights at it, causing Mr. Boots to react. When the main investigator overstimulates the spirit, their electrical meter registers a burst of energy equivalent to a tiny magnet with a resistance of over 25 ohms. Number 7. The Hellish Apartment. A college student was visiting her home for the holidays with a friend who said her house was haunted. In the master bedroom, the girl and her friend, who is a dedicated ghost hunter, did an EVP session. During the session, the group began to experience headaches and stomach pains, which they attributed to an EVP. According to her acquaintance, her grandparents perished in the bedroom, but then they heard noises from the kitchen. They moved their EVP session to the kitchen, which became unusually hot, almost as if the oven had been switched on when it wasn't. A friend began praying and rejecting the spirit by gripping hands, but their hands began to separate on their own. Something was coming up the stairs from the basement. As a horned shadow extended down the wall, the companion yelled for the spirit to leave. She awoke on the floor after a full 5 minutes. Her friends left the house, and when she returned, they told her she smelled like fire and had a crimson handprint on her ankle. Number 6. The Mansfield House is a mansion in the English town of Mansfield. When a woman's son lost his job, he and his fiancée moved in with her, and the mother was relieved to not be alone in the house anymore. The fiancée put their child to sleep close to the baby monitor in the crib. She hears "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" playing on the television when she heads downstairs to start making lunch. In the crib, there were no musical toys. The infant begins to howl when his name is called over the monitor. The mother had nightmares of a small girl being abused by nuns after that. The nuns threw the girl against the wall, and the mother awoke from her dream to discover her daughter had died. When she went inside, she noticed a concrete chamber built into the foundation. The young girl's charred bones were discovered when she and her son opened it. Number 5. The White Woman is a film about a woman who is white. One night while working as a security guard at the Honolulu Police Department's training facility, the facility's outdoor wooden shutters began wildly opening and closing. As the guard approached, they came to a standstill. He went about his business until he observed a woman dressed in white approaching him from across the parking lot. He assumed she needed assistance, but he never heard the gate open and he was perplexed as to how she got inside the perimeter. When the guard asked whether she needed assistance, she said nothing and continued going toward the house, staring blankly ahead. When the guard turned around and saw nothing out of the ordinary, he turned back to face the woman only to discover that she had vanished. When he finished his duty and walked down for a break, he noticed the woman sitting across from him. He bolted and never came back to work at the site again. We would assume she was the victim of some crime that led her spirit to linger, because women in white are typically victims. Number 4. It's the third time's the charm. Sacred geometry was used by the designers of the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California, to connect it to the astral plane. It's unclear whether this was done to help the spirits or to confuse them. When a paranormal investigator and his companions returned to the house, they were standing in the hallway when they spotted a light flickering at the opposite end as if someone had passed through. They hurried into the labyrinth, hoping to find out if the spirit had passed them by. They received a verbal reaction and were given the sense that they were not invited to return to the residence for a third time. Number 3. Galveston Cemetery. She was extremely ill when she was 3 years old, according to a popular YouTube vlogger known for her dark, Gothic style, and residing in a state between life and death built a connection between her and spirits. As a youngster, she used to visit Galveston's oldest cemetery on a regular basis, and she felt solace in the presence of ghosts much as she did when resting with friends. Her attention was drawn to a few tombstones in particular. Because her battery was still draining halfway through the video explaining this, she had to change it halfway through. She goes on to claim that she just bought a beautiful new car, but that the electricity, radio, and air conditioning all failed her. She also admits that her house has carbon monoxide detectors in every room, but only the one in her bedroom is turned on. She passed a girl in a store and had a deep sense of melancholy as a result of her cemetery encounters. She came to a complete stop and spoke with her, discovering that the girl's grandparents had passed away. The vlogger returned to the Galveston Cemetery in search of names. One of the gravestones she was looking at had a great-granddaughter and the young lady as her great-granddaughter. Number 2. Mount Vernon. A history buff paid a visit to George Washington's residence on July 4th. The house was rather hot because it was the middle of summer in Virginia and houses were not built with air conditioning at the time. When this visitor peeked inside Washington's room, the room where he died, it was bitterly chilly. Since a delineator prevented a guest from entering the room, she peeked through the doorframe and she sensed someone watching her as she paused at the washbasin and mirror. She tried to get up as quickly as she could, but she couldn't even open her mouth to call for help. She was then approached by an unidentifiable figure who stared her down until she was let go and fell to her back. She wanted to leave the house immediately soon, despite the fact that she had suggested the trip. Her family refuses to believe her to this day. Number 1. Brothers in basements. An older brother's family migrated to the suburbs. His younger brother, who was about 5 or 6 years old at the time, refused to go downstairs and the family chalked it up to usual small child behavior. After a few months, the younger brother had a mental breakdown at the dinner table, sobbing and yelling, "It's gazing at me," at the basement door. The house seemed to quiet down until the oldest brother's birthday, after the family persuaded him to do so as well. He rushed downstairs when he heard singing, thinking it was his parents, but no one was there. As a result, he went back to his room and listened to the music again. The voice came from the vents themselves. "To the cellar, please." A few weeks later, his younger brother went missing and his family ripped the house apart in search of him, but they were unable to find him. They did hear him wailing in the vents though. The mother of the older son prohibited him from going downstairs, where she saw a shadow of a man. She yelled at it to leave her house and leave her sons alone, and it did, and she found the younger son in the basement shortly after.